Okay, I will call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging we are in Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me are Robert Phillick, and to my immediate left, and Stuart McPherson to my far left. The assessor today is Jason Brown, and the recording secretary is Cara Belshaw. We'll be hearing the application for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements the applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Do the honors.
You swear in? Please state your name.
Jason Brown.
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please swear in this morning. Please state your name.
I'm Thomas Leslie.
Do you swear the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Okay, the first item on today's agenda is 260 Main Street, so you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roll number for the subject property is 12097512600. Located at 260 Main Street. This is the Humphreys Inn and Suites. It's located on the corner of Main and York. We have a 2020 assessment of $9,319,000. This is a 6-story hotel built in 2001, consisting of 128 guest rooms. On the following page, page 2, you'll see our request for income information. The hotel has been compliant for most of the years, however, you notice that 2016 was not received. Which brings us to page 3. This is my estimated value by the income approach. You'll see the 2015 and 2017 figures that we received from the owner. We've stabilized using the 2017 figures. You'll see that we've used all actuals for income at $3,296,072. The departmental expenses, once again, we've used all actuals, totaling $1,177,407. And for the undistributed expenses, once again, we've used 100% actuals. However, you'll notice that we have added in the 4% management fee and the 3% FF&E reserve. This is a standard approach to reduce the business value of the hotel so that we can get down to the bricks and mortar and land. Once again, the fixed expenses we've used, we use the actual taxes that we have in our system, which are pretty close to what were reported by the owner, and we've used the actual insurance. You'll note that the net operating income for 2017 is $1,330,330. Once we remove the FF&E and the management, it becomes $1,096,304. So once again, based 100% on actuals, You'll notice above revenue, the year end for this hotel is February 28th. Therefore, the 2018 would be within the reference date. However, we didn't receive the 2018 INE until September 4th, 2019, so 26 days ago. So not enough time to change the value. The roll was already struck, so we are relying on the 2017 data. On page 4, this shows our breakdown of admin and general, which corresponds to the previous page, 182,723, which is what we've stabilized at. And the reconciliation, we haven't taken anything out of the statements, so the NOI shows the same as what does in the statements. On page 5, we have our capitalization rates. I don't believe that is being objected to today, so I'll skip that. On page 6 and 7, we do have some Municipal Assessment Acts excerpts. I'm just going to point to page 7 quickly at the top. There's the effect of providing inconsistent information. We are going to see 2 different statements, actually 3 different statements for this hotel. I'm using the statement that was provided by the owner during our request for information for 2017. However, you will see 2 other statements when Mr. Leslie presents. So I'll just read that quickly. Where in response to a request for information or documentation under clause 16(1)(c), a person provided information that was substantially at variance with the information that he or she presented at a hearing, the presiding officer of the board or panel may order that the information presented by the person at the hearing is not to be considered by the board or panel in making this decision. So we'll see those other statements when Mr. Leslie presents, so we can address that at that point. On page 8, I have some photographs of the subject. There's the map view at the top on the corner of York and Main across from Earl's.
So can I
Yep.
clarify, are you asking for us to provide that to enforce?
Not officially, however, I'm asking that you keep that in mind when you make your decision.
Okay.
It's always hard when you try and use 2 different statements. You guys will have to decide which statements to use. You can't really compare 2 different statements if they're not the same, so I'll leave that in your hands. Thank you.
All right.
So once again, on page 8, just showing where the subject property lies, across from Earl's, near the Forks. Areas undergoing some rejuvenation. Some of the buildings around there have been updated. Some pictures of the subject property on the interior on page 10 and 11, and 12 and 13. Page 14 shows the pool and the exercise room. Page 15, this is an older permit from 2001. When they built the property, you'll see a total project value of $6 million. Page 16 just shows some amenities that the hotel offers. Page 17, so this is the INE that we've received. This is a result of the request for information from the city to the owner. This was received on June 14th, 2018, so in time for the reassessment. On the following page, you'll see these were filled out by R. Gamble, who is their accountant. They were filled out June 13th, 2018. I'll just get you to make a note of that date. And once again, we've used these statements, we've used 100% of the actuals. And based on that information, we ask that the assessment be confirmed at $9,319,000. Thank you.
Okay, do you have questions of the assessor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brown, so it appears to be the issue is you're basing your assessment on the actual information that's been provided.
That's correct.
Now, And with your brief, you've provided a copy of the information that that the agent for the subject property provided to the accountant,
Correct, this was
Mr. Gamble.
a request for information to the owner who, I suppose, has asked the accountant to supply.
Now, it's hard to read with blacked out at the top. Do you know which year end that information is provided for?
Seeing as, so we always ask for the previous year, and seeing how this was submitted in June of 2018, I would assume that it's the 2017 data.
And are you aware that the year end of the subject property is February
Correct,
annually?
correct.
So your request comes out every year in the spring,
Correct.
and
The first due date is generally in May, early May,
so,
and then a subsequent certified mailer will go out, and the response due for that would be June 29th.
so the information for 2017 was provided in June of 18?
Correct, on time.
So if we go back to your page 2, so you're saying they never sent in the 2016 information?
We have never received the 2016 information.
Did you ever send a certified request for the,
We only send certified mailers every other year for the reassessment year, so it would be 2015, 2017.
okay. For the 2018 year, which is, let me back up. The reference date is April 1st, 2018.
Correct.
So for the I'm sorry, I have, so let's go back to the information circular that was provided.
Okay.
This was received in June of 18,
Correct.
and it's for the year ending February of 17.
Once again, a little hard to read the date at the top. However, because we always ask for the previous year's information, I would just assume that it's the 2017. Otherwise, it would be non-compliant.
But the year end of the, you've confirmed the year end of the subject is 2017.
Correct.
So, in fact, if I was to suggest that the income and expense questionnaire that was provided, that's attached, is for the 2016,
Ending 2017.
ending February 2017.
Correct.
So it's their 2016 information.
It would be the majority of 2016. Ending in 2017 would be the most current information that we had at the time of building the roll.
But you did confirm that the 2018, which is really 2017, was received.
It was received, but not until September 4th of 2019, so late, because they were due in June. And once again, only 26 days before this hearing, and evidence was due 2 weeks before, and the roll was already struck, so it was not feasible to use that.
If you had the information for the 2017 year, would it have changed your assessment?
You talking the 2017-18 financials?
Right.
If we had them in time to input them before the roll was set, we definitely would have used them. However, with the February end date, it would be pretty tricky to get them and input them in time in order to produce the roll.
So you appreciate that your request for the 2017, which is to be used for the 2018 roll, and they have a year end of February, it would be difficult for them to comply with your request for information on time for you to set the roll.
Which is why we generally will just use it. Most end dates are after the reference date, so we'll use the 2017s. This one is one of the few that are before. However, it's a case of trying to get the information in time before the roll is set, and trying to input it and decipher it or stabilize it.
You'll agree with me that the objective is to assess the roll at April 1st, 2018,
That's correct.
and to set the roll at a value that a willing buyer would pay a willing seller,
Correct.
and that a willing buyer would assess the current information in order to determine what the price they would pay the vendor.
Correct. The city tries to be fair and equitable. We find by using the 2017s across the board that that's fair and equitable to all owners. And then there's the time constraints of trying to get the 18s in time and input them and stabilize them before the roll is set.
Do you do all the assessments for the hotels in the city of Winnipeg?
There are 3 of us that do all the hotels.
Alright.
One is part-time.
Are you aware of what's happening in the hotel market on or about the reference date?
Could you be more specific?
Generally, what's happening with assessments for the hotel market?
There was some increase. I don't have the figures in front of me. On average, I would say there would be an increase.
If I was to suggest to you that's contrary to what some experts are saying, what's happening in the Winnipeg market in the reference year?
I would have to see some evidence of that.
So you use really the 2016 numbers, is that not correct?
Ending in
February of
February
17.
2017, correct.
And the methodology that's used is consistent with the methodology that is for the establishing values for these type of hotels?
That's correct.
And your capitalization rate was 10%.
That's correct.
I see on the first page of the income and expense questionnaire, the agent for the owner confirmed that the occupancy rate was 62.9%.
That's correct.
If the occupancy rate was significantly less than that in the subject year, would that affect the value?
It would. We've gone to 100% actuals, so we've reflected what's happening to this subject property.
Those are all my questions, thank you.
Okay, Stu, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. Did I hear you correctly? You said that you use 100% actuals for subject property?
With the inclusion of the management and FF&E reserve.
Right, and that's for the entire
That's a standard
inventory of
procedure,
hotels?
yeah, it's done across the board.
So you don't stabilize over a 3-year period if you have information?
Generally, we don't. We find that the most current year is most indicative of how the property's performing at this time, and I think most of the evidence you'll see today, we've used like for both sides, we've used the most current year.
Okay, and how does the occupancy rate figure into the assessment?
The occupancy rate is what drives the income for the rooms. Once again, we've reflected what's actually occurring at the subject by using the actual income for the rooms.
Okay, so you don't apply 62 0.9%,
No.
you just use the actual income.
If you look at the top of mine, we actually calculated at 63.1, which was probably just a slight difference in the math used. But we've used, you can see the 2017 column there, reporting to 3,218,721, which is what we've used for the statewide. And you'll note that the income is increasing, as is the NOI.
Question, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
I guess that was just a little clarification for undistributed expenses. When it says A&G management wages, that's employees,
Correct.
and it comes on a round figure like that?
That was what was reported to us. I can, on the last page of my evidence, column B, 3 down, they're stating $100,000.
Okay, and then down below, management fees is to the owner?
That's just a standard formula that we use in hotels, because we're not valuing the business component of the hotel. We're just trying to value the bricks and mortar and underlying land. So by allowing a management fee of 4%, an FF&E of 3%, FF&E reserve of 3%, and then you'll see at the bottom there's an FF&E deduction of 15%. That's to remove the furniture, fixtures, and equipment from the calculation, and then the management's to remove the business component. It's called the Rushmore approach. It's a universally adopted approach, and you'll see it
So that reserve is put money aside to buy new furniture?
correct, which we're not assessing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
That's it, sorry.
Wasn't sure if you were thanking me for his answer.
Yeah, I know, I apologize. No, I have no other questions.
Okay, so just so I'm 100% clear on this, what you have labeled as 2017 is actually March of 16 through February of 17.
Correct.
Okay. Just one clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you can proceed with your presentation. Okay, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you have before you my brief, plus a supplement that I've handed out, which I believe speaks to what a willing buyer would look at in purchasing in the Winnipeg marketplace on or about the reference date. As you have heard, the subject property has a year end of February, which would encompass predominantly the 2016 year for income and expense questionnaire. The assessor has confirmed that while it's noted on page 2 that it was not received, it actually was received, but it was received, and I believe the income and expense questionnaire that's included with the assessor's brief is dated June of 18. So that information did go in. So for the 2017 information, and I've included a copy of that after a copy of the financial statements of the subject property. That is dated July of 2018. Unfortunately, I did not number my pages, and I should have done that. It's page 14.
Which page are you, could you show us the page you're referring to?
Well, he's-
I'm just numbering the pages now.
Richard Gamble,
So
Financial Services.
what you have is my cover page. Then there is a summary of the subject property for information purposes only. There is a reference to the municipal board on page 3. Page 4 is my workup of the valuation using, it refers to 2018 and 2017, but those are the 2018, 2017 year-end information as compiled by the subject's accountant, Richard Gamble. So that I've numbered as page 4. Page 5 is the financial statements compiled by the accountants, Richard G. Gamble. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And page 14 is the first page of the income and expense questionnaire. This income and expense questionnaire is actually for the period ending February of 18, and it was sent in July of 18. You will note on that income and expense questionnaire that it's noting that the overall occupancy rate is 58.6%. That's on page 14, the income and expense questionnaire. The assessor has used a rate, I believe, of in excess of 63%. And of course, that is going to significantly affect the revenue earned by the hotel. It won't affect the expenses incurred by the hotel. The expenses are always going up. So we've got a request for information that comes out in March, April of 2018 for the 2017 information. The subject property has their accountant prepare that information on the year ending of February. For tax purposes, that is not due until the end of August of 2018. So the fact that they submitted it in July to the assessment department, I know it is late, but that's the issue with them having a February year end. I think you also heard that the assessor submit that the valuation is based, they've used actual information. And so I believe the difference that we're arriving at is I'm using the 2017, which is a February 18 year end, to value the property. I believe our methodology is exactly the same. Our cap rate's the same. I'm just using actuals for 2017 with a February 18 year end. Mr. Brown is using 2016 with a February 17. I can confirm that Mr. Brown's information is the 2016, because if you look at the financial statements prepared by Mr. Gamble on the income statement, which is page 8. The revenue of 3296075, Mr. Brown uses 3296072. And I believe stabilized is a misnomer. I think Mr. Brown is just using the 2016 February 17 numbers. He calls it February 17, but it actually is, and I think we've agreed, is the 10 months of 16 and 2 months of 17. And in my discussions with the owner of the property, Mr. Costas, throughout the rest of 17 and into February 18, the market is becoming more competitive and the occupancy is declining. And that is confirmed by the information that was prepared by Hotel Valuation Systems that I handed out as a supplement. And I think a willing buyer would look at that information, look at the opportunity for the future, because that's really what the capitalization rate does. It projects a value based on current earnings and says this is what the property is worth because these earnings are going to flow into the future. But in fact, the earnings of the subject property are declining and the occupancy rate continues to decline. And the reason it continues to decline is because, as set out in the supplement, there is more competition in the marketplace, and there's an anticipation that there's going to be even more competition if these other properties are built. On page 4, is my workup of the value of the subject property on or about the reference date, April 1st, 2018. And I've used the actual numbers from the financial statements that are attached to my brief. I've added back interest and service charges, interest on term loans, and donations to arrive at the operating profit. From the operating profit, I've deducted the reserve for replacement to 3%, which is accepted by the department. 4% for management, which is accepted by the department. I've used a capitalization rate of 10%, which is accepted by the department and in their brief, to arrive at a value based on, I think it's called net operating income, but that is actually the value, the estimated value before the personal property allowance, because the subject is operating a business. And originally when I prepared this estimate, I had used the 2 years and stabilized them. So really, while it says 2018 and 2017, we're really looking at 16 and 17. And the 17 column are the numbers that Mr. Brown used. Those are the actual numbers. And so for 17, I get a value based on the methodology of 8,854,630. And for 2017, which is named 2018 because that's their year end, the information provided in July of 19, the value is 8,213,074. And originally, I averaged the two. But the exercise is to determine what a willing buyer would pay a willing seller at April 1st, 2018. And when I did some research and I came across what HVS is suggesting that's happening in the Winnipeg marketplace, and I believe that any investor in the Winnipeg marketplace looking to purchase a hotel is gonna look at that same information, I then decided to say, you know what? I'm gonna discount the 16, 17 information, and I'm only gonna look at 17, the 18 year end, because the marketplace is declining. There's a number of reasons for why the marketplace is declining. You can talk about what's happening in the economy, you can talk about what's happening in Alberta, you can talk about what's happening in China, you can talk about what's happening in interest rates. But HVS has said that the market is, and my information circulator confirms that the occupancy rate is down over 5%. And so a buyer is going to look at that information and take that into account when they're determining what the price they're going to pay for it. Mr. Brown indicated, well, he didn't get that information until September of 18. My information circular is dated July of 18. I don't know why they have it as September 18. But the exercise is, what is a willing buyer gonna pay the willing seller April 1st, 2018? And I think they're going to look at this information to determine what the proper value is and where the market is going. Therefore, I submit that the subject property at the April 1st, 2018 reference date is $8,213,000. That is my submission.
Okay, questions? Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd actually like to make a quick statement based on, I was reviewing the financials that, the ones that we received in September of 2019. And I can actually make out the date, these were from 2019, which is probably why we received them in September of 2019. So we never did receive the 2018. We can make copies of this if you guys like, or you can look at it. So we never did receive the 2018 at the city. In September of 19, we did receive the 2019, but that's post-reference. So
Is it 2019 or 2018?
the ones we received in September of 2019, I can make out the date on this page. And that's, I was gonna ask you whether my 2018s were different from your 2018s, but I figured it out, it's because these are actually the 2019s. So if you wanna look at them, they're right here. So we,
what you received in 2019 are the
2019.
are the February
ending
19 statements.
Correct, so
But
most of 18, but 2 months of 19, but that would be post-reference.
right, but none of that information has been provided here.
Correct. What I'm stating is that we never received the 2018, which is what you're basing the assessment on.
But just to be clear, I'm basing the assessment on the February 18 statements, which are really the 2017.
Correct, which is statements we never received at the city. So it would be impossible for us
Well,
to base
no,
the
no,
assessment on
you're saying you never received
February 28, 2018,
the 2017,
ending in 18.
no, if I go to your page 2, 2017,
Was received. That's year-end February 28, 2017, which are the statements provided by Mr. Gamble, titled 2017. And then we never received the 2018, but we did receive the 2019, which is post-reference. So you're asking me to base an assessment on 2018s that we never received?
okay, the ones that you said you're not received are for 2016.
No, we did not receive the 2016, year-end February 28, 2016. We did receive year-end February 28, 2017. We did not receive year-end February 28, 2018.
But would not the February 17 be the 16?
Technically, I mean, you have them listed as 17 and 18 yourself, so for just simplicity, I'm just gonna refer to them as that.
Okay, but the 17 is the 16 year end,
Correct.
and that is the one that's with your brief.
Correct.
Okay,
And the one you have labeled as 17 as well.
right. And the 18, you did receive, but you received it in September of 18.
No, that was the 2019, February 28th, 2019.
So the submission, in my submission, I have a copy of the 2018.
Correct, we
You
never.
never received this, you're saying?
No,
Though it's dated July of 18.
yes. I don't know, we never received it, it's not in our system.
Would you have used that information if you had said you had received it?
Depending on when we received it. If the roll was still open and we had time to input it and stabilize it, it's possible.
Would a buyer look at that information in order to determine what they're gonna pay for the property at the subject reference date?
If the buyer had access to it, I would assume they would. And I just have one question based on your handout. Second paragraph down, Winnipeg lodging market had a stronger year in 2017. Demand and RevPAR increased by 7.8 and 8.1 respectively. You would agree?
In 17?
Yeah, and then in 18, it went down 2% and 1.3 respectively. So still an increase of 5.8 and 7.8 based on the previous year. Like 7.8 minus 2.
Fallen, it says it's fallen. in
Yeah, but
18.
it's fallen from a high, from an increase, so if we deduct 2% from 7.8, that would give us 5.8, and if we deduct 1.3 from 8.1, it would still be a positive.
No, I don't think that's how you do it. But what I was showing was that there was a decline in 18.
After an increase, and then a slight.
And there was,
A
it
big
showed an
increase and a
increase in
slight
the
decline.
17, and I believe my information shows that 17 was better than 18.
Okay. Okay, those are all my questions, thank you.
Okay, Stu, questions?
I'm just a little confused on this I&E that you provided, Mr. Leslie, your page 14. This was obviously filled out by our Gamble,
Right?
who's been doing the other ones, and this is July 20th of 18. But the assessor says that you never received it. Do you have any evidence that it was submitted, or did you get any acknowledgement for it?
As far as I know, the department did receive it.
It was obviously done by hand and not submitted electronically.
Correct?
And that seems to be the process that the, Mr. Gamble has used in the past.
That is correct. Why they would have received they confirmed they received the 2017 in June of 18, but they referred to it as the 2018. And then this one, when I asked for a copy, it was provided to me, and I'm assuming it was sent in. The assessor has indicated they received the 19 in 2019.
And I believe you said you're using the same methodology as the assessor, basically.
That's correct.
So if I look at your page 4, I'm just wondering why there's a difference in your, I guess it's 17, and what he's come up with for the assessed value. You come up with 8,854,000 and change, and he has 9,318,000 and change. Where would the difference lie if you're both using the same information?
The in the operating profit. I view the revenue of 3,296,072 is the same number that the assessor,
Uses for revenue, correct?
and that is the number per the financial statements as compiled by Mr. Gamble.
Right.
Okay, then I've taken the expenses as per Mr. Gamble's statement, and I've added back interest, service charges, interest on term loans and donations to arrive at an operating profit of 1,272,000. I've not tried to reconcile why these are the actual numbers.
And you're not relying on a column for your presentation anyway?
I'm not relying on that, no.
It's the 2018.
But the 4% management number is the same number that Mr. Brown is using,
Right.
and the reserve for replacement number is the same.
Looks like the NOIs are about 50,000, so I'd say you had about 50,000 more expenses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I can tell you that in my inspection of the subject property, in my discussions with the owner, that they're incurring additional expenses relative to the security of the property downtown. Though they don't refer to it as security, they're concerned about how they deal with that issue. They call them parking lot attendant. But I believe that issue in the downtown marketplace is quite commonplace and has received a lot of attention lately. The subject property competes with mostly the airport hotels. that's not an issue for the airport hotels.
Those were my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Bob?
Mr. Leslie, I was trying to see some of these expenses that you've included. But let's just get down on this summary page here. In 2017, and I guess where it gets confused for people is when we keep on saying this is 17, but 8 to 10 months is 16 and so forth. Corporate-wise, that's the 17th year, that's the 18th year, that's whatever it ends. Whether it's in November or October or December or March or whatever, that's the year of 2017 or 2018. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I see in your particular case here, let's go on your page down below, before you get to the capitalization rate, you got 1,041,715. You see that? This statement right here, on 17?
1,041,715?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then you multiply by 10%,
I divide by 10%, yes.
which is the same rate.
Yep.
Okay. Whereas the assessor has 1,096,304, and I was trying to figure out where the difference of roughly $55,000 is.
Mhm.
And I couldn't seem to come up with it. And I was trying to figure out where the 211,693, which is the expenses you start with, when I was adding it all up, I couldn't come up
If
with
we
that.
go to page, it's my page 8 in the submission, it's page 3 of the financial statements.
Okay,
So on page 3 of the financial statements, I have deducted expenses as per Mr. Gamble's page 8 of 2,116,993. Those are the actual expenses.
well, it says expenses, page 8, 2,084,550. Oh, I see, on 17, yes, correct, I apologize. Okay,
Those are the expenses I deducted. I did not deduct, according to Mr. Gamble's statement, management fees, depreciation, or management salary, because those are accounted for through the reserve for replacement and 4% management.
right.
So the difference in the expenses, which is approximately $50,000, would be on that page 8 of Mr. Gamble's. And I haven't analyzed what Mr. Brown has arrived at.
Okay. I was wondering where you got 2,000,001, I understand that now.
Yeah, but I did add back the interest and service charges and
And
interest on
donations.
term loans and donations, which aren't
Right,
considered expenses for purposes of the valuation.
right. Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Okay. I was gonna ask the same question, and thank you for clarifying that. All right, I have no questions that haven't been asked and answered. So, summation, what do you wish to do?
The city was provided information by the owner. We've used 100% actuals of those financials. We feel that 9,319 is a fair and equitable assessment, and we ask that you confirm it. Thank you.
Summation?
I would recommend in the future that the owner maybe provide us with the actual financial statements, if you could pass that along to him.
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, that we're dealing with different information, but the objective is to determine what the willing buyer would pay the willing seller at April 1st, 2018. I find it a bit unusual that for the 2016 information circular, which is said not to have been received, which was actually received late, there's not a request for non-compliance. I think there's an acknowledgement by the department that they have the information, albeit, I can't confirm when it was sent in.
I will say that we will accept Mr. Brown's sworn testimony as to whether the matter was received or not. So let's move on from there.
Well, I just wanted to be clear, that information for 16 was received, and it's in his
Well, we're
brief.
not talking about 6, we're talking about the most recent information you wish to use.
And so my submission is that the subject property at the reference date is $8,213,000, because that is the most current information that a willing buyer is gonna look at. The information for 2019 is after the reference date, the majority of that information. And I think we're in agreement on methodology, we're dealing with different information. That's my submission, thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Lesser, I do have one more question, and I apologize. When you had that page that we were referring to, and you stabilized and down below, you had 8,533,000, and you rounded that off to 8,534,000, correct?
Right.
And then with your ballpoint pen, you changed it to 8,213,000. Have you explained where you got the 8,213,000?
The 8,213,000 is the 2018 column. I didn't,
Oh, okay.
based on, I thought I had referred to that, based on the information that I had gathered about what was happening in the marketplace,
So you wanted to use the current.
I wanted to use the most current information.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that concludes the hearing then, so let's move on to the, let's take a short break. I understand there's a non-compliance on this one, which might take some time, so we'll take a 5-minute break now. Okay, we'll come to 695 Berry Street, so can you swear Mr. Story in?
Good morning, we swear in today.
Yes.
Please state your name.
Sid Story.
Do you swear the evidence you present today is the truth and the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thanks. Okay, so I understand there's a non-co-op requested on this, so can you lead us through the non-co-op first of all?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll turn right to page 2 of the evidence. We have our request for income information. You'll see this opened in September of 2013. We did receive the 14, 15, and 16, however, we did not receive the 2017 nor the 2018. Can turn right to page 15 of my evidence. This is the envelope for the certified mailer, addressed to RC Hotels Manitoba Limited at 695 Berry Street. You'll see at the top right-hand corner, there's a number LP 578626666. The following page, we have a signature. Once again, the number at the top of that page corresponds with the digits on the previous page, LP 578.
What page are you on now, sir?
16. So 15 showed the envelope with the numbers at the top right-hand corner, right beside the postage. 16 shows the signature with the corresponding number at the top of that page, number that corresponds to the envelope. And then on page 17, this is the income and expense mailer that was mailed to them. Once again, you'll see that same corresponding number at the top left. Addressed to RC Hotels Manitoba Limited at 695 Barrie, and you'll see that it was returned, or it was not returned. This was the blank mailer that was sent out. On page 23 is the 2016 data, which was the last year we received. Based on that, we ask that the request for non-compliance be allowed.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Story on the non-conform.
Yes, we acknowledge the non-compliance issue.
Okay, that makes that quick. So then that reverses the onus,
And I just like to request a 54-1.
so you're declining to present any evidence?
Yes.
So can you lead us through your evaluations, so we have something to base on?
For sure. So just quickly, the roll number is 070018622200. We have a 2020 assessment of $7,236,000. This building was built in 2012, 2013. They have a licensed capacity of 196 seats. They have 16 BLTs and 90 guest rooms. On page 2 of my evidence, or sorry, page 3, I have the estimate of value by income approach. You'll see the 2015, that was the second full year of operation, revenue of 1.77 million. 2016, third full year, 2.5 million. We have estimated at 2.904 based on the increasing revenues. You will see the net operating incomes at the bottom, 703,601, 995,495. We've stabilized at 851,331, which we feel is more than fair, especially using the, if you even just look at the 495, and we deduct the 3% and 4% management. Oh, sorry, the 3% management, the 4% management's already declared at 116,743. That would give us an NOI of 920,491, which is higher than what we've stabilized, and of course that's the 2016. Just basically asking that the assessment be confirmed at $7,236,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I gather you have no questions, Mr. Story?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, any questions from the panel?
For me, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Short and sweet.
It is.
Number my chair.
We'll talk about it.
Please swear. Please state your name.
Douglas Becker.
Do you swear the evidence you present to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we are on 1979 Wellington Avenue. So you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roll number is 07569133,600. The address for the subject is 1979 Wellington Avenue. This is in the airport, which is why you see the Winnipeg Airport Authority, Inc. and Her Majesty the Queen as owners. This is the Grand Winnipeg Airport Hotel by Lakeview. We have a 2020 assessment of $11,266,000. This hotel was built in 2013. It's a 6-story hotel containing 101 guest rooms and 223 licensed seats. They have complied with all the requests for information shown on page 2. Page 3, I have my estimate of value by income approach. You'll see the 3 years, 2015, 2016, 2017. Once again, you'll note that we've used 100% of the actuals for income at $4,781,22. We've used all actuals of departmental expenses at $1,928,869. Once again, for the undistributed expenses, we've used 100% of the actuals with the addition of the management fee at 4% and the FF&E reserve at 3%. And we've used 100% of the actuals for the fixed expenses. This generates a net operating income of $1,126,594. We've capitalized that at 8.5%. This is our lowest capitalization rate for hotels. However, this is a luxury hotel on prime property by the airport. You'll see the NOI is increasing along with the revenue. We'll get into some of the amenities later in my evidence, but once again, this is a luxury hotel. So 8.5% capitalization rate, we've done an FF&E deduction of 15%. This generates our final value of $1,266,000 rounded. On page 4, there's our breakdown of administration in general. We've used the $714,274 as shown by the owner. The reconciliation, so the net operating income on the statement, and I'll just go through 2017, shows a negative $230,529. However, we've removed some of the expenses that are not allowed for an income approach. Interest at $671,000, depreciation amortization at $709,000, land lease at $79,550. We don't allow the land lease because we're valuing the fee simple aspect of the property, which is the total bundle of rights. There are some other leases at $5,000, health and education tax, which is a corporation tax, at $27,000, and the parking lease at $7,000. On page 5, we have our capitalization rates. Hotels are located at the bottom. So we've considered this an urban full service. You'll see the city of Winnipeg has cap rates ranging from 8.5 to 10. As I've stated, we've used the 8.5. You'll see Colliers comes in at between 7.75 and 9.25. CBRE comes in at between 7.75 and 9. And Cushman Wakefield comes in at between 8 and 10. So all the lows are lower than what we've used. And the highs, it's probably somewhere in between what they're reporting for the lows and the highs. Some photographs of the subject property. So this is located on the bend after you exit the hotel. Coming around the bend, there is a walkway, indoor walkway to connect to the hotel, to connect to the other hotel, and which then would connect to the terminal. Page 9 shows the property being built in 2013 and the completed photograph currently. This is a high-end hotel. They label it as a boutique hotel, but it is a luxury hotel. You can see from the pictures, all the finishes are high-end, and it's very modern. Pictures all the way through to page 15. Page 16, this is taken from their website. They just state that the boutique hotel provides true personal attention, thoughtful amenities, beautifully appointed accommodations, memorable culinary experiences. There's an iPad in every room, smart TV, Keurig coffee machine, mini fridge, 24-hour room service. There is concierge service, valet service, and bell service also available. So this is, you'll see in the third paragraph, they do refer to luxury. So this is a high-end hotel. Some more information on the preceding pages. On page 20, there is the permit dated January 9th, 2013, showing a total project value of $14 million. We have an article from the Winnipeg Free Press on page 21. I have highlighted the third paragraph down there stating it was a $23 million luxury boutique hotel. Page 25, these are the income and expense statements we received from the owner. Once again, we've used 100% of the actuals. And based on that, we feel that the assessment at $11,266,000 should be confirmed. Thank you.
Okay, questions?
Yes, just a couple. If I go to page, you mentioned that it's on the land lease.
Correct.
What page?
Oh, no, I'm just, sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you mentioned that there's a land lease on the property because the land is actually owned by the airport or Her Majesty the Queen.
Correct.
So they have a separate roll number for their space for the hotel, right?
Yes, yeah.
So if there's other people that lease land from the airport, they have a separate roll number, it's carved off the assessment of the airport?
Correct.
What about the land lease that this one has for parking? Like, there is no actual roll number for it, is there?
No. They have 10 parking stalls, which they lease for annually, it looks like $79,000.
No, that would be their land lease. If I turn to your page 4,
Correct.
under your reconciliation, you have land lease at $79,550, and then you have parking lease at $7,000.
Yeah.
Is there a separate roll number for that space?
Nope. It is in the, I believe it's in the parkade. However, those parking spots were given to the hotel by the airport authority, and therefore they need to be assessed to somebody. They're not being assessed to the airport authority. The hotel is using them, so we've assessed it to them.
I guess my question is, if I was an owner of a hotel and I don't have very much land and I need to provide parking for my patrons, and I have to lease land, say at a different roll number, I would be allowed that as an expense, would I not?
We don't allow that. They do charge for parking too, on page 17 of my brief.
Well, no, I know you've included that in the income.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I have to lease parking to make money, it's not like it's a land lease. I'm leasing space from them to generate income. So why would that expense not be allowed? It's not assessed separately under any other roll number.
Well, leasing is like a form of financing.
Not if it's to make money. I mean, when your VLT revenue, you're actually leasing the machines from the government, right?
But if they bought that property and had a mortgage on it, we wouldn't allow that.
If I had a roll number, a separate parking lot with a roll number on it and assessed value on it, and I needed that to earn my parking revenue, you'd let me deduct that assessment from the hotel assessment, correct?
Generally, yes.
Yeah. But in this case, we're not giving them any kind of an allowance for that, other than adding the parking revenue.
Yeah, but it has to be assigned to somebody, and the WAA is not paying.
How do we know that? Like, why would it not be somebody be paying for it?
It's just the way we have it set up. It's just the way it's set up.
You know, like, I understand if there's an actual land lease and there's a separate roll number for it, it's taken out of the roll number of the WAA.
Yes.
But this is a $7,000 fee that they pay to a parkade to generate income.
Yeah, I suppose. It looks like it was only 3,000 in 2016. Do you know why it more than doubled?
No, I have no idea. Maybe they got more stalls. Okay, you also, other leases, so the other lease is for $5,000. Do you know if that's for, like, video equipment that they bring in for conferences or for meetings, et cetera?
Most likely.
And we include the income that they get from that rental, correct?
I suppose it would be in the
Okay.
bank.
And health health and education tax, you say that's based on a corporation?
Yeah.
So, in order to own $11 million hotel, you're saying that we don't allow the corporation tax? It would just be somebody that's,
I mean, if an independent operator owned it, they wouldn't be paying that tax, and we're,
and this has no flag, right?
correct.
If I can actually turn to page 5, under capitalization rate.
Yeah.
Other full-service hotels receive a cap rate of 9%, is that correct?
We have we have a range between 8.5 and 10.
Can you tell me which other ones get 8.5 other than the airport?
I believe in at the Forks, but I'm not 100% on
In
that.
at the Forks, but not say the Fairmont?
No, the Fairmont is a little, it's getting up there in age.
Okay, but that's kind of noted as a premier hotel in Winnipeg, correct?
Yeah, it probably
Okay.
has some deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed.
All right, so the 2 airport hotels are getting 8.5 because they're on the airport.
This is prime land for a hotel, yeah.
The Holiday Inn Airport West is 9%.
2520 Portage?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Holiday Inn Airport South, 1330 Pembina, that gets 9%.
correct.
These are full service, ample parking, banquet facilities, etc.
We've used the lower cap rate for the hotel properties at the airport due to their
Okay, now,
lower risk.
on your table number 5, you've got urban full service hotel at the very bottom of your table there.
Yeah.
You got the city of Winnipeg 8.5 to 9. I'm unaware, I can't find any full-service hotel in Winnipeg that's sold since like 2014. I think that was the Hilton and the, well, it's the Best Western Plus now on
Yeah.
Wellington. Can you tell me of any sales where you've gotten that 8.5 from?
Not off the top of my head.
But you're not aware of any, are you? No, okay. All right, that's all the questions I have.
Okay, Mr. McPherson, questions? Excuse me. So this $7,000 for parking, do you know, are there designated stalls in the parkade?
They do have designated stalls. This is, if you want.
So the area can actually be identified as to,
Correct. It looks like they have about 1,500 square feet.
Is that to distribute?
If you like, I don't have copies of it.
Just those 2 copies?
I have 2 copies, yeah, if you want to make, or just enter those as evidence.
Are you
I can
guys
pass
good
it
sharing
around.
that one? You're okay?
so. Just following up from Mr. Becker's question, I guess. Could there be a separate roll number assigned to that property?
It is on a separate roll number, I believe. However,
Well, the parkade is, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying the portion that's leased to that.
no, that would be assigned to this roll number.
There's no circumstances where part of the parkade has been carved out?
I've never seen that.
And the 8.5 cap, that's the airport hotels and in at the Forks?
Correct, off the top of my head.
None of the other downtown hotels or,
I don't believe so, no.
what about the ones that are kind of on the periphery of the airport? I'm not sure what it's called anymore. It was the,
Victorian.
well, no, I'm thinking the newer one on the north side of Portage. It's changed names.
There's the Hilton there, there's the,
There's 2520, I believe that's we use 9%. Most of the property, most of the hotel full service, we've used 9%. There's a select few that we've chosen 8.5, and I believe they're just the airport and the unit Forks. Due to them being in a prime location and having a lower risk due to that.
Okay, so they are in a prime location, but the ones in the nearby vicinity, don't they offer things like shuttle service and?
They do, but sometimes people just want to walk out of the terminal and right to their room. You'll note that the income is increasing substantially, as is the NOI.
Okay, that's my questions, thank you.
All right. Bob, any questions? No, I don't. And I have no questions of the assessor, so you
I
can.
have one follow-up based on
Okay,
Jason's
go ahead.
question. You mentioned that you noticed that the income has been increasing. Has it not increased on basically all the hotels in Winnipeg for 17?
I have only looked, at the ones on the docket for today. I've noticed the airport ones definitely had some significant increases.
Okay, all the ones that I've looked at, the income has increased from 16 to 17. And one of the reasons was we held the summer games,
That's correct.
so there was an influx of, I think it was, I forget how many, tens or hundreds of thousands of people that came in to watch that, so there was an increase in the occupancy and in the hotel revenues.
Yep.
Okay, so this one's not singled out because it's at the airport, they've all had increases.
I would have to look that over in more detail, but, and according to what Mr. Leslie provided, it sounds accurate.
Yeah, okay, that's it.
Okay, you can proceed with your,
Okay, basically, Mr. Brown and I use the same approach for evaluating, it's just sometimes our numbers are slightly different. So if I could ask the board to turn to page 5. What I've done is just put a table here that shows where the assessment department is and where we're at with our numbers. You'll see they're very close. We start with virtually the same amount of income. Our departmental expenses are very close. Where we differ a little bit is in the admin in general. Again, it's how the hotels report their income. Some will report it all under A&G, some report under different spots. But the end result is, the city has a net operating income of $1,126,594. I'm at $1,101,910. There's only roughly $25,000 difference in our NOI, but I'm using a 9% capitalization rate instead of the 8.5. So if I could ask the board to turn to page 6. Under the capitalization rate, I've got the assessor has used a cap rate of 8.5% for the subject. Similar full-service hotels are being assessed with a 9% cap rate. Subject is located on leased land at the Winnipeg International Airport. While we are not asking that the land lease be deducted as an expense, we still do feel that being on leased land is a riskier venture than being located on land that is owned by the hotel. Land leases at the airport have a timeline where at the end of the lease, the improvement revert to the airport or are required to be removed. We feel this is an added risk that other hotels on owned land would not have, and the fact that the subject does not benefit with higher room rates than full-service hotels located outside the airport. We have added 0.5 to the assessor's cap rate and will be using 9%. The city cap rate chart below lists cap rates for full-service hotels ranging from 8 to 10%. Based on the city's research, their cap rates range from 8.5 to 10. Collier shows range from 7.75 to 9.25. CBRE is 7.75 to 9, and Cushman Wakefield shows a range of 8 to 10. So based on our net operating income and a 9% capitalization rate, I would ask that the board reduce the assessment from $11,266,000 to $10,407,000. Again, like being on the airport, you're limited to the land. You have a land lease for where your hotel sits. If you want to add to your hotel, you have to hope that the airport has more land available to you. If you want parking, you have to lease it from somewhere else in the airport. And those are restrictions and things that I don't think are not the same restrictions that you would have if you were at the Aldean Airport West or South. That's my presentation.
okay, questions?
Yes, please, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you know when the lease ends?
It's a longer lease. It doesn't end for at least another 40 years.
Okay. And would you agree that leasing is a form of financing similar to a mortgage? If you bought the land, you would have a mortgage, we would not allow that?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. The land
Okay.
lease is not. I'm just saying that there is different restrictions with having a land lease as opposed to owning your own land.
Would you agree that there's sometimes some benefits to a land lease in terms of the money you save from buying the land can now be invested?
No, I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay. Those are all my questions, thank you.
Okay, questions still?
Maybe just a couple quick ones. Seems how you brought it up on page 6, this is actually the assessor's chart,
Yes,
and you're referring to Do you know which hotels are included in any of these studies?
No, like I say, the last hotels that I remember selling, that were sold were the Hilton and it was the Greenwood Inn, and then it was turned into the Best Western Plus. And that was all owned by Fortis, which was a REIT out of the Maritimes, and they sold it to Westmont. And all I know is the sale prices were considerably lower than the numbers that were on it at the time, but we couldn't bring it up because it was post-reference.
The one sold for twice, one for 25, and then a few years later for 12, so there was some
Yeah, so
mitigating
There
circumstances.
was, and then there was a couple of, there was one other sale, and it was a half interest sale of the Holiday Inn on Pembina Highway, where
Which we will see.
Arnie Thorstensen with H REIT ended up losing the hotel and was taken over by, it's Temple REIT, I think.
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yep. That's the only ones I'm aware of, so I don't have any capitalization rates either.
Okay, so basically, you've accepted what the assessor has done for a capitalization rate and then used a 0.5% adjustment from the assessor's rate?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think it should be assessed at a lower capitalization rate than the ones down the street, like the Best Western or the Victoria Inn or the Hilton. To me, or the Airport West.
So that's based on location, I'm assuming you're saying that's why they should be the same. Do they offer the same level of finish and same amenities?
Well, the Birch is at 9, and it had, I forget how many millions of dollars put into it. Mr. Brown and I had both inspected it. It would be similar in finish to the.
Which one?
The Birchwood, sorry, Holiday Inn Airport West, I'm dating myself. Yeah, and that one is at a 9%. Now that one now offers surface and underground parking. It has good banquet facilities. These ones have, you're only limited to what you can put on that piece of land that you lease. So I don't think there should be a difference in the cap rate.
So my own questions, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I am not.
Okay, I have no questions, so any submission you wish to do on this?
It pretty much boils down to the $25,000 in NOI, which on 1.1 million is minuscule. And then the cap rate, we feel that the airport location provides a superior location, being able to walk from the terminal right to your room without having to worry about a cab or a shuttle when it's -40, we believe has some value, and that's why we've applied this slightly lower rating.
My opinion is that there may be benefits on the airport if you're traveling and you're just stopping overnight. If you have a place to park your car, why not go to a place like the Holiday Inn Airport West where you have an area for your children to play and you have free parking. You'll see that the rooms on a per room basis, the assessment for this hotel is over 110,000. And the next hotel we're dealing with is called an airport hotel, and it's less than half of that. So I think my value is fair. Thank you.
Okay, well,
Can I request two copies?
sure. We shall resume with 1330 Pembina Highway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roll number is 0308179100. Property is located at 1330 Pembina Highway. This is the Holiday in Winnipeg South. We have a 2020 assessment of $7,982,000. This property ranges from 2 to 11 stories, over 2 buildings. Effective year built 1979, 1980. License capacity of 535 seats, 3 VLTs, and 170 guest rooms. On page 3 of my evidence, I have the estimate of value by income approach. Once again, we've used 100% actuals for income at $7,628,000. The Departmental expenses, we have made a slight adjustment. Those are the two figures in red, showing $700,000. The original 2017 figures were well over 100% of, so those are the food and beverage costs and wages. Now, if you add them up, which I should have done before. Those equal $1,472,000.
Where are you?
The two red figures in my stabilized column at 700, so I'm adding up the 2017 food and beverage costs and wages. So 605,776 plus 867,161. That equals 1,472,937. Which you'll see is close to 100% of what they're reporting for the actual revenue for food and beverage at 1,544,658. So I've slightly reduced those to 45% of the revenue, which still adds up to 90% when combined of the food and beverage revenue. So I believe that's the only adjustment we've made. We've used the actual telephone, the actual other. So about $73,000 less if you compare the 2017 departmental expenses with my stabilized. So about $73,000. We've used the actual admin in general at $222,208. We've used the actual wages and benefits, actual marketing, actual energy and water, actual repair and maintenance. We've used the 4%, so they actually, in their statement, they included the management and FF&E together on one line at $431,197. You'll see that's pretty close to what we're using, slightly lower than the 4% and 3%. We've used 280, 798 plus 210, so closer to 290, or 490, sorry. We've used the actual franchise fees at $267,060. Use the actual taxes and insurance. This gives us a net operating income of $833,816, which is in line with what they've reported in 2017, and remembering that they also deducted management fee and FF&E reserve in their statements, so those are comparing apples to apples right there. So only about $13,000 more than they reported in 17 with their FF&E and management included. On the next page, I have a breakdown of administration in general. Like I stated, we've used the actuals at $222,280. The reconciliation, in 2017, the net operating income on the statement was $752,999. We've added back equipment rental, Manitoba tax, and employee relations, which we didn't know what that was. I did email Mr. Betker, looking for some clarification on that expense, and
I don't remember getting an email.
oh, I asked you what EMP relation was, and all you said all you knew was that it stood for employee relations.
Oh.
And that was all you had. I don't think I brought that with me, but. So once you add those back in, gives us our NOI at $820,480, which does match what's on the NOI for the preceding page. On page 8, showing the location of the subject property on Pembina Highway beside the old police station. This hotel was renovated. I have the permit in here, so I can speak to when it was renovated when I get to that page. But you'll see on page 16, this is taken right from their website, newly renovated Holiday Inn, Winnipeg South, great accommodations, excellent value. And the highlighted passage shows 170 newly renovated guest rooms, so it was a substantial renovation. This is a full-service hotel, pool, shuttle, fitness center, kids pool, restaurant, etc. On page 19, this was the 50% sale that Mr. Betker referred to in the previous property. This was a press release by Temple Hotels Incorporated, January 31st, 2013. Total effective purchase price of $5.5 million was funded by the assumption of 50%. So by extrapolation, this was an $11 million sale, $5.5 million for 50%. The previous acquisition of 50% was in November 30th, 2012. So Temple now owns 100% of the Holiday Inn site. Page 20, this was taken from the Winnipeg Free Press. Once again, referring to the sale. They added 6 new properties in 2013. Highlighted passage, once again, just showing Temple said the deal was valued at $11 million. So just showing that the math from the previous page was correct, that the 50% stake at 5.5 does translate to an $11 million value. On page 22 and 23, we have a mortgage for the subject property. On page 23 at the top, this is a 2013 mortgage at Steinbach Credit Union, showing at $7.5 million. So once again, that is, this is a 2020 appeal, so that's 7 years old. I guess 5 if you want to use the reference date of April 1st, 2018. Page 28 and 29, these are the permits for the interior alterations. So this first one is showing December 1st, 2015. Declared construction value $844,000. Work includes relocate bar, reframe bar, restaurant area, new finishes, flooring, tiles. Mechanical includes new diffuser, sprinklers, and plumbing work. There was some electrical work, etc. Following page, page 30 and 31. This one is January 1st, 2015. Once again, it's an interior alteration for the hotel. This is the second floor. Work includes tearing down interior wall to relocate the fitness room, new catering office, new millwork and cosmetic work, etc. This one is $45,000. And then the following page, page 33. This permit is November 13th, 2014. Once again, it's an interior alteration permit. This is for the remaining floors 3 through to 11. Work includes removal and replacement of wallpaper and other cosmetic work. Total construction value for this one is $249,000 and change. Page 34. This was the workup for the 2018 assessment. I'll give you guys all time to go to page 34. This was a verbal rec that was accepted. You'll note that the income for the stabilized for this rec was $4.5 million. And the NOI in 2015, which is what this was based off, was at 265. If we quickly go back to page 3 of my evidence, you'll see the NOI is now in 16 and 18, 720,000 and 820,000. So the NOI has come up significantly. I referred to those permits. Those were in 2015. This was when the renovation was taking place, which is why you see the low NOI. It has obviously rebounded nicely back up to 820. So that rec at 7.4 million was based on an NOI of 265. It was accepted. We are at 7.9 now. So with the more than doubling of the NOI, it seems appropriate that the value would go up about 500,000, which is what we're asking today. The following pages are simply the financial statements as provided by the owner. On page 41, you'll see the two that we removed, Manitoba tax at 6.7 and the EMP related, which we haven't been able to figure out what that was, so we haven't included that at 45,500. So based on that, we asked that the assessment be confirmed. Oh, actually, sorry, I'm asking for a value of $7,875,000 at the bottom of my first page, which was based on the revised stabilization of the food and beverage revenue. So we asked that the assessment be confirmed at $7,875,000, I guess, as a verbal rec. Questions?
Yes, just a
Instead
couple.
of 7,982, you're asking 7.
At the bottom of page 1, it has my revised, and that does
Oh, yeah,
correspond
right.
with the bottom of page
Yeah,
3.
right.
Wait, just a couple, because they're still fresh in my mind. On page 34, you speak about the net income being 265 as opposed to 820.
Correct.
Okay, but the 265 has a much higher R&M because they were still doing the rentals then, right?
Of course, yeah, but you'll notice the income was at about 4.5, whereas it's up at around 7 million now.
See, I don't see that. I see that 5.5.
Oh, sorry, 5.5, I'm dyslexic.
Okay, so the income went up 1.5, okay.
Correct.
And your net income, because there was higher expenses. Okay, if I, still on page 34, your admin in general works out to 16.1%.
That is correct.
Okay, and if I turn to page 3, sorry about this, your admin in general is 9.9.
Correct. As you stated before, different hotels report differently. It looks like, for the purpose of the recommendation, it would stand to reason that other expenses would be higher.
Okay, like, so I guess if
The
I,
marketing is at 9.6, whereas on this it's 3.5.
okay. I'm just
You could go
curious, I
further,
guess,
but-
because like the other one that we just did was around the 14 too. And so Manitoba tax, what is that based on?
That is a corporation tax. Sorry, let me just get.
Is that on the number of employees or is it?
It's a tax base paid by a corporation that wouldn't be paid for by an independent owner.
Okay, so we're assuming this would be bought by an independent.
We value all hotels on a fair and equitable formula, so we assume that, and I actually have some rebuttal here, if you want me to hand it out. Just, this is from the UBC book, Foundations of Real Estate Appraisal, and this section is titled Exclusions from Reconstructed Operating Statements. One of the exclusions is a special corporation tax. These expenses attributable to corporation operation also pertain to the type of ownership. For example, a corporate property owner will often pay money to a shareholder in the form of a management fee. Corporate expenses are not part of a reconstructed operating statement developed for appraisal purposes.
Okay, and the 45,499, the 45,499, even though they show it as employee relations or it's related, you just feel it shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, without knowing what it is,
Okay, but they're still low on their admin in general compared to normal.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's in the ballpark. We see some big fluctuations. I see you're at about 9% too, so.
Okay, you talked about the sale. Do you know that part of the sale was to Arnie's wife?
Yeah, it's not, there's some question marks about the sale.
Okay, and you mentioned a mortgage, the Steinbeck Credit Union?
Correct.
I can't remember which page.
Page 23.
23, okay, so it says 7.5, and for notes, it says notes, description, no description. So do we know what the mortgage is for?
It jives with the sale of the property in 2013, the date.
But do we know if it's just for the hotel, if that includes the beds and everything else as
There would-
backup, or?
There would be some, definitely be some goodwill and some, in the sale, the mortgage, I'm not sure. It looks like they put some cash down because the sale was for 11 and they only took a mortgage for 7.5. I'm not relying on this, it's just showing that they did get a loan for 7.5.
Okay, and if we turn to your page 3 again, it has a 70% occupancy and just under $120 average daily rate.
For the stabilized?
Yes, well, for the actual.
Okay, yeah, 70%.
Okay, and you're using a 9% cap.
Correct.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Okay, do you have any questions?
Yes, quick ones. There's franchise fees, so obviously this is a flag.
Correct.
And does a flag hotel, does that affect anything? Does it affect the determination of the cap rate, for instance?
We more classify them in groupings like select service, full service, beverage. We do notice that flags definitely have higher income. Their expenses are also a bit higher, but having that central booking where you can call one number or go to a website definitely would increase your revenues, but
Okay.
also your expenses.
Okay, but it doesn't affect your cap rate?
Not per se, but most full-service hotels are generally flags. So in a roundabout way, I guess it does, but generally we just look at the type of hotel. Try and be consistent in that regard.
Okay, and the amount of renovations, if you just add the permit values up, did you go through that exercise?
I did not. It was
Pretty substantial.
It was pretty substantial, yeah.
So, based on that, you made the effective age from 1979 to 1980?
I believe this hotel was actually something else before it was a hotel. I don't know when it was actually built, but
It was a farm implement dealership or something
yeah.
at one time, the main floor, and then they added the.
That was a long time ago.
That was a-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it was built before 1979. Don't quote me on that, but we don't use a model in hotels. It's all site specific. So the effective age,
Would not
it would
affect,
count, like we would look at it, but it would, an old tired building might get a slightly higher cap, but because this was renovated and it's got a flag. A flag always, you have to maintain a certain level of standards when you have a flag. So 9% is appropriate.
okay, it's just that earlier on this property, but we heard, I believe it was Mr. Becker saying that the Fairmont, for instance, is getting a little tired. Or was it you that said?
Yeah,
It's getting
I
tired.
believe we allowed some, I can't speak to that because I didn't do the, but I believe we allowed some higher R&M on that one as a result.
Great. My questions, thank you.
Okay, Bob, any other-
No.
no questions? Okay, I have no questions, so you can proceed, Mr. Beckner.
If I could ask the board, well, ask Jason first. On page 16 of my presentation, basically it sort of mirrors what Mr. Brown had done on page 3. But my page 17, my page.
I'm sorry, what page?
Page 11.
Yeah, there's no
Sorry, I couldn't
16.
read
There's
my
no
writing.
16.
I couldn't read my writing.
Oh,
Well, you had it at 6 and you stroked it up there.
But on page 12 and 13, I attached one on the different valuations, so I'd like to attach the one that matches the numbers on. If you notice on page 12, it says total sales 6 million too. But my actual total sales are 7 million.
Okay.
So I'd like to put in the corrected one, if that's okay with you.
It's, if your income's going up, it's great by me.
I'm not saying the value's going up.
That's one of the questions I'm gonna ask.
I think that must have been from, I tried to average it and it didn't look right. So if I just ask the board to turn to the handout, that's basically all I'm gonna rely on anyway. And if I could ask the board to put page 3 of the assessors, have it open so I can kind of give you an idea. I did do a little table showing the differences, but just to kind of show you where we're not far off. We're using the same cap rates, the same FF&E allowance, management, etc. So on my revised page 11, I have, if you look at the, under this thing, I got total sales of 7,628,000. That matches Mr. Brown's on his page 3. If you go down to departmental expenses, I'm at 3,003,000, where Mr. Brown is at 3,103,000. We go down to the fixed expenses, mine is higher on this one because I haven't allowed for management at that time. But you'll see Mr. Brown is at 9.9% for admin, I'm at 9. His marketing is at 474, my 470,000, mine is at 674. I think part of my marketing might be in the admin on Mr. Brown's calculations. For 345, we're the same. For utilities, for maintenance, we're the same. For franchise, we're the same. And for management, that's on my next page. So the biggest issue here is, I guess, on the expenses. So if I ask the board to turn to the next page, this is kind of what the last stabilized area of Mr. Brown's would be. So if you look, I'm at 7 million, income same as him. I'm $200,000 roughly higher on the expenses, on the total department expenses. And then when we get to total general expenses, I'm at 2,793,000, Mr. Brown's at 2,858,000. We both have added for VLT revenue of 19,327. We've used the same taxes and insurance. So the biggest difference, I guess, is in the departmental expenses. I have a net income of 697 as opposed to 833. The next page, I've capitalized it at 9%, allowed a 15% allowance for personal property, and I have a rounded value of 6,587,000. So based on my calculations, I'm asking the board to reduce the assessment from 7,982,000 to 6,587,000.
Well, actually, what you wanna do is say 7,875.
No, 6,587.
That's the assessor, 787.
Yeah. He's got.
Oh, I'm sorry, from the 70, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And again, I've used the numbers right off the owner's
Yeah.
income and expense.
Good check.
I'm open for questions.
Any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so your revised income workup, the income went up roughly $775,000 from 6.25 to 7 million.
Yes.
Yet the net operating income went down about 40 and change.
Yes, I can honestly tell you this isn't from that same column. But
Oh.
if you look at the rooms, I've used 25% as opposed to the average. I also tried stabilizing this one using an average, and I put that one in instead of the correct one, which is the actual, based on the actual.
So I guess I'll ask my questions all on your revised.
Yep.
Your food and beverage cost and wages, you don't have your percentages in there, is there any reason for that?
No, that would just be the program. I got this off the statement, the actual cost of food was 421 and the wages was $1,065,000. And in beverages, it was 67,000 and wages were 45,000.
Okay, so just looking at food, they're taking in revenue 1.3 and change, correct?
Yeah, and I think the banquet would be included in there as well.
Yet their costs are 1.48, so they're losing money every time they serve food?
Like I said, I think if you took the total food and beverage that I have, I'm roughly at around $1,600,000 to $1,700,000. If you took lines, at the top, they're lines 2, 3, and 4. So you have food at $1,300,000, you have beverage at $238,000, and you have banquets at just under $165,000. And then if you take lines 11, 12, 13, 14, those would add up to about $1,600,000, I guess. So roughly they would clear about 100,000, just over 100,000.
So the food and beverage combined is 1.5.
Well, I've added the banquet into there too. I
Oh,
don't have any
okay.
expenses for the banquet.
Yeah, 2, 3, and 4,
Okay, yeah. So they're
11, 12, 14.
just breaking even with a slight profit margin on those.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see, is that normal for hotels?
Some it is, some it isn't. I know depending on the type of hotel, some hotels have to have food in order to serve liquor, and they usually can a lot of times lose money on it. But, it's usually around that 10 to 15%.
Okay. On the first page of your handout, NOIs go from 293 all the way up to 977?
Yes,
Okay, and that $7.4 million assessment was based on the 2015, which was at just under 300,000?
I gotta look at your,
Well, it was based on 15,
yeah,
right? Because a 16 reference date.
yeah. Yeah, I never actually looked at the old assessment.
But that would have been the last statement before the 2018.
Yeah, and I don't even know if that was appealed or not.
It was, there was, the verbal recommendation was accepted.
And was it appealed, Brendan? Yeah.
And that was at 7.4, so despite the NOI at least tripling, you're saying this should go down in value?
Based on what actually happened in 17, if you notice on the other one, there was all kinds of renovations, et cetera, going on. A lot of higher expenses than normal.
Okay, and generally when you renovate a property, does it go down in value?
Well, you would hope not. You're renovating to hope you can maintain your customer base.
Okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Hey, Bob, questions?
No, I don't.
Stu?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I do have one question.
Okay.
When I see this sheet that you just gave us.
Yes.
And we get down to the net operating profit of 697,
Yes.
and the assessor has 833, 816.
Correct.
I was going through here and I didn't quite pick up quickly enough where the difference.
It's mainly in the food and beverage costs.
Okay, so there he's got 1,000,004, and when we add this all up, it comes to quite a bit more than that.
Yeah, I'm at around 1,550,000 or whatever. And like, if you look at the total department expenses, I'm at 3,303,000, and I think.
Opposed to 3,103.
Yeah, so that's the main difference.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I have no questions. Anybody feel the need for summation on this one? No, okay, thank you very much. We will then go further south to 3450 Pembina. No, sorry, 3540, my dyslexia is flying.
You can proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roll number for the subject property is 03091175-300. Located at 3540 Pembina Highway. This is the St. Norbert Hotel. We have a 2020 assessment of $3.4 million. This is a 1968 hotel. One story, one building, with a license capacity of 265 seats, 22 VLTs and 17 guest rooms. So a little bit different from the other hotels we're seeing today. Less rooms, more VLTs, which will be reflected in my income approach. On page 2, you'll see that this was sold on December 9th, 2014. We did receive the subsequent 3 requests for information from the owner. You will see the sales history below that. The 2014 sale was for $2.5 million. It also sold in 08 and 03 for bit lower and quite a bit older than 2014, so. Page 3, see my estimate of value by the income approach. Once again, we've used the actual 2017 income at $4,104,911. These 5 line items for revenue represent 94% of their total income. And once again, we've used all actuals. For the departmental expenses, once again, we've used all actuals at $3,144,748. Undistributed expenses, you will see 3 red numbers in there. For the 2017, for A&G wages and benefits, you'll see a figure of $268,306. We've basically carved that up into the following 3 line items. So the 106, 123, 306, and 39 does equal 268, 306. Note that we've used the actual admin and general 18.4, which is very high. Generally, we see these in the 9 to 10, 11, 12%. Energy and water, we've used actual. Repair and maintenance, we've used actual. And then, once again, we've added in the management fees and FF&E reserve at 4% and 3% respectively. Use the actual fixed expenses at $99,005. You'll see the NOI, or the VLT income at $246,914. Gives us NOI for the stabilized column at $453,391. Capitalized at 12% with a 10% FF&E deduction. Gives us our final value at $3.4 million rounded. Page 4 shows the breakdown of admin and general. We've used all of the reported expenses despite it being quite high, at $128,000. And then the reconciliation, once again, we've just removed the equipment rental and lease, as we do on every hotel property. I have some photographs of the subject property starting on page 8. There's an aerial view. This is on Pembina between Avenue de la Digue and Avenue Lemay. Standard guest room on page 9 and an exterior shot. Page 10 showing their renovated vendor. And page 11 showing the renovated beverage room and the VLTs. Page 12 shows the restaurant. Page 13 shows their patio, which was recently added. Page 14 just shows some of the amenities. Beer store, restaurant, etc. Page 15, this is the sales questionnaire from the 2015 sale, showing the sale price at $2.5 million. Page 17 onward, these are, I believe we have different financial statements once again, similar to the first property. These were provided by the owner as a part of a request for information by the city. We request these every year. This is what was provided to us. You'll see on the following page. Page 18, these were filled out by Gerald Lambert, who is identifying himself as the president of the hotel. So once again, we requested information, and this is what we received. This is what the assessment should be based on. Any subsequent information you're going to see today would be inconsistent with what was received. And based on that, we ask that the value be confirmed at $3.4 million. Thank you.
Any questions?
I guess if I could go to your page 15.
Yeah.
You mentioned sworn value is $2,550,000,
Correct.
but the owner indicated that there was $290,000 of furniture included in that sale.
That's correct.
So it's actually closer to 2.2, 2.250.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all. the
Shows you that the
questions
10% deduction is in line.
Yeah. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, Bob, questions?
I do, and I guess it's for learning process on my part. The FF&E deduction,
10%,
you use 10%.
as opposed to 15 on the other hotels.
Right.
So that's the difference between a beverage hotel and a rooms hotel.
Okay.
Rooms hotel received 15%. Obviously, a full-service rooms hotel is gonna need, more linens, more glassware, more TVs, etc. All not accessible. These are standard. These have all been tested at the municipal board. I believe Mr. Betker's also using 10%. Generally not a point of contention, but just the difference between a different style of hotels.
That's it.
Okay, Stu?
Just the VLT, that came straight from what they reported on page 18, line 706,
Correct.
and that's about half the value of the property.
Most of these beverage hotels wouldn't exist without VLTs. A lot of them are in the negative until you add the VLTs. It's definitely a lifeline for these hotels.
Okay, and the cap rate that you've applied then is 10%?
12%.
12,
Yeah.
which I think is outside the range of,
Yeah, we don't show beverage hotels on this chart, but our beverage hotels range from 12 to 16%. This would be a higher end beverage hotel.
12 to 15?
12 to 16. So 16 are reserved for turn of the century, shared bathrooms, generally about $8 to $10 a day, generally on North Main or Central Main Street. This obviously is a much better location. They're actually generating room revenue, increasing NOI, well, from 16 to 17 anyway.
okay, but I guess that 12%, that reflects the fact that if they lose their VLT license, they lose half their income.
Yeah, generally they don't lose their license. They do move VLTs around based on how much they earn. So we have seen some of the ones in lower income areas lose some VLTs just because VLTs generally generate about $20,000 per year per VLT machine net. But basically they will analyze all the VLTs and they'll see which ones are generating the most money and they'll move them around accordingly. This is in a good neighborhood and it seems to be doing pretty good. It's in around that $20,000 per machine, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can proceed.
Yes, okay, as we saw on page 3 of Mr. Brown's presentation, the overall income for the property actually decreased. It increased from 215 to 16, and then it decreased in 17. But again, Mr. Brown mentioned that we have different financial information. His was what he was sent to the city by the owner. Mr. Lambert is one of the owners of the hotel. And if you turn to page 9 of our presentation, this is what we got from the accountants. And its year ended November 30th. With all other properties other than hotels, if it's done on the income approach, we're able to pull off the mailer that the city gets from the owners with their user ID. For hotels, the mailers are never shown on the web, so we get whatever the owner sends us. So this is what we got from the owner, and it was done by, I'm not sure what accounting firm, but this is what we based our information on. So if I could ask the board again to keep page 3 open on Mr. Brown's report, just so we can keep things easy. My income is actually higher than what was reported on Mr. Brown's. If I can ask you to turn to page 6 of my report under stabilized. Our room revenue is the same at $134,960. Our food revenue is the same at $366. Our vendor revenue is a little bit higher at $856. Our vendor is almost $200,000 higher. And our other income is also higher than Mr. Brown. So he has a total sales of $4,104,000. I'm at $4,413,000. If we go down the expenses, we get to the total department expenses. Mr. Brown's at $3,144,000. I'm at $3,330,000. And you can see that I have an additional $160,000, whatever, just in the vendor costs, because my vendor is higher than what was used by, what was submitted to Mr. Brown. The vendors normally, like if you see on my number 4 there, it shows the total vendor income is $2,890,000. Then if you go to vendor costs, when you add back the wages, there's not a lot of profit in there. It's 10 to 15%. But without the vendor, without the BLT, the hotel would close. It's simple as that. We get to admin in general. I'm at $517,000, and Mr. Brown was at roughly $350,000. We're similar on marketing, energy and water, repairs and maintenance. My management fee is slightly higher because my income's higher, and my reserve is slightly higher because of the income. We get down to fixed expenses. We're the same for, I got $14,000 for business assessment. For property tax, I got $44,000. For insurance, Mr. Brown is $40,000, I have $30,000. Ends up my NOI is $372,050, capped at 12% with a 10% FF&E is $2,790,000. Again, the personal property allowance is that hotels are the only properties that are assessed based on the actual income that they earn for all aspects of it. And without TVs and beds and tables, you wouldn't receive that income, so therefore there's an allowance for a reserve to replace that, and then an allowance at the end to compensate for that. So based on my evaluation, I am asking the board to reduce the assessment to $2,790,000.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brown?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've only provided 1 year of income and expense?
Yes, this was the one they sent me for. Well, they sent me 17 and 18, and you can see, I'll tell I whited out 18.
So you don't have a 3-year stabilized?
No, I
No,
don't.
okay. Admin in general, $517,965.
Yes.
Do you know what the percentage of revenue that is?
I can do it quickly. It's around 12%.
12. I have it at 26.1.
Of total sales.
Yeah.
Well, if I divide 517,
I mean, I'm using 396, and that's 18%, and you're using 517, so it's,
but I'm on a higher, if I divide 517,965, divide that by 4, oops,
plus your BLT income.
I didn't include my BLT. Do you include that? I get 12%. If I divide 517,965 by total sales less BLT, I get 11.7.
Okay. Oh, I guess we were supposed to take vendor cost off. Oh, no. Okay.
On my statements where there was that kind of information, if you like turn to page 17, it's under general and admin expenses.
Yeah.
You'll see that, if you see a number beside a number, that coincides with the number on my valuation sheet. Like, for instance, the first one's 35, so that would be for business tax. So the total there was 463, 449, and then if you go back to page 13, I also, on there were the ones that are marked with 22, those are also part of it. So it's not made up just from that one sheet, it's throughout the, I look for stuff that's not related to different property, like different departments, and I put it in general.
That brings me to the next question. So they've broken out their beverage room wages, 105,000, that's on page 13. I believe that's what you've used. Yeah, 105. On the following page, vendor wages, 92, which is what you've used, close, 95. On the next page, hotel rooms wages, 18,000, I would assume that's in your rooms expense.
Yes,
Okay,
I put in, if you take the 18 for wages,
include supplies.
and supplies, yeah.
Following page, restaurant, wages, 154, correct?
Yep.
And then on page 17, admin in general, there's salaries and benefits, 245, so what would that entail?
Probably the bar.
But there's beverage wages on page 13, I believe. Yeah, 105,000.
Well, it could be the benefits that go with it, salaries and benefits, it could be the management of each department, it could be,
So,
I'm not exactly sure the.
so each department has its own wages, but then for admin in general, there's a giant salary of 245. Could that be for the management?
I don't think so, but I think that also includes the wages that you have, like for instance, 92,000 for the vendor. I don't think that includes Manitoba tax and CPP and EI and all that. That's all part of admin in general.
I always find it interesting when each department has its own wages, and then in A&G you see a giant wage, which to me screams management. If each department has its own wage,
As far as I know, that's,
I mean, that's a giant wage, that's $250,000.
well, if you look at page 20 of yours, on your admin in general, you've included all the other wages, it's the same as I have. Your last page, you got salary and wages, 222, but there's no management wages. So, it's laid out the same as on what you have here.
but if you add up my A&G, it's only 396,408, and yours is at 517, so I was wondering, it's almost 120,000 difference. I was wondering where that difference could be.
I'd have to go through each line item on my financials.
So you would agree that my income and expense statements were filled out by the owner,
Yes,
and they were provided to the city as a request for information?
as far as I know, yes.
Okay, do you know why they don't submit the financial statements?
No, I had no idea you had this until I got your brief.
Okay. Those are all my questions, thank you.
Stu, any questions?
I guess just following up on that, do you ask your clients for what was submitted to the department, or you just ask for financial statements?
I normally, this isn't my, I'm not the lead agent on this one, so I'm not the person that would have asked for the information.
Right.
But I normally ask for a copy of their financials and whatever they send to the city. It's always nice to be on the same playing field.
Right. And I just noticed on page 17 of your brief, when you get to it, you got a parking lot rental in there, 5637.
Yes, they rent part of the parking space at the strip mall at $35.50 Pembroke.
And is that an allowable expense?
Yes, they need it, it's required. It's along the side of the building on those strip mall.
I'm just trying to reconcile that with one we heard before where there was a $7,000
Yeah,
rental and,
they don't have enough on-site parking, so they rent from the neighbor.
okay.
And the neighbor actually
And would you
deducts
know,
that as a.
would you know that that's
They-
considered part of the assessment for the neighbor?
They include it in their income. But we always take it off as an expense.
We've included parking in our income?
No, not yourself, I'm talking about 35,
Oh,
50 Pembina.
Yeah, but there's no income for this.
No, they don't charge for parking.
And I don't believe that shows up on our statement. That
It's always been there, I know that, because I've done both properties.
should be on page 20, but I don't see it on there.
I guess just one other, donations, I've seen this a couple of times now. Is that an allowable expense?
I've always allowed it as expense.
Because you don't know what it's for, or,
No.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm slightly confused,
Okay.
okay? And I shouldn't be, and my background's an accountant. Okay. I go to page 9, and this is the statements from the accountants.
Yes,
And this is the statements that would have been filed with the tax office.
yes,
And in effect, it shows income before other expenses and income taxes, 414,862. You see that?
yes,
Okay. And then the other expenses are amortization, which is an allowed interest on the shareholder's loan and on long-term debt, so forth. Then when you go back to page 6, and you've done this, and it shows 217 up there. But when we get down to net operating income, you have 520, whereas on page 9 it said 414. And I'm a little confused why that's higher than what you had there.
I'm not sure.
And then my other question is, when you have only 1 year, how do you stabilize just 1 year?
Well, what we've been doing is we've accepted the practice of the assessment department where the hotel's been in existence for a long time without any major renovations or anything, and there hasn't been anything like a major flood that could cause the room revenue to go up, et cetera. We've been using the last year. If you look at all the ones where it says stabilized, it's actually,
But normally, when it stabilizes, it's got 3 years or something along that
Yeah.
line.
but if
What-
you, yeah.
And all you've got that I see that you're using is
Is the 1 year.
17,
Yes,
and yet this gets changed to different numbers.
yeah,
And what would reserve of 59,000?
that is for, it's an annual money that they're supposed to put away to replace the equipment that's used to earn the money that's not accessible. That's the standard reserve.
Or is that part of the 12 and the 10? I mean, part of the 10?
Of the cap rate?
No, the
Or the
10%.
personal no, that's, no, again, it's because they're using, like, if you sell a beer, a bottle of beer, they're assessing you on that income. And to sell that bottle of beer, you need the tables and chairs and the counter. If it was a restaurant, we would would assess you based on the amount of rent that you pay for that building. We wouldn't, even if you could make $10 million in VLTs, and we wouldn't assess you more, we would assess you based on, hotels are just done differently. They have to take away the goodwill, they have to take away the reserve for the replacement of the chattels, and then they have to take away an allowance for the chattels. 3%'s been kind of standard. I think that's something that's gonna be an issue one day, but that's standard on all hotels.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess the main difference in your two things is the admin in general. 517,965 versus 357,480 if you add up the.
There's also a difference in our departmental expenses. 240,000.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So could you explain to me then how you, again, you got to the 517,965?
If I can ask the board to turn to page 17. The items there where I have a number beside there entered on a different line, like business taxes. Number 34 is insurance, 36 is taxes, 25 is R&M, and then 17 is telephone utility. So if you were to remove those, I had 463. And then I added back, I added back security, and I added back security. So that would be a number, on page 13, I added back 55,000. Less $1,227, added that to the 463, and that's where I came up with the 517.
All right, now Mr. Brown touched on this, salaries and benefits of almost 246,000, where they seem to be accounted for department by department. You previously said that might be benefits.
Well, like CPP or OAS, like that they have to pay on behalf of each.
Well, they don't pay OAS, they do pay CCP. But then what does the previous line of employee benefits of 54,000 signify?
You know, that's, I honestly don't know. I know it's been allowed by, it's always been in there, but I've never actually questioned why it would be different, so I can't give you a good answer on that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not double counting something.
You know, we both allowed for it, I'm not sure what the difference is.
Okay, I have no further questions, so any summation that you wish to do?
Just quickly, we've used almost, I think we have used 100% of the actuals of the information that was provided to us by the owner. This was the first time seeing these statements. They are a little bit different than what was submitted, so we asked that the decision be based on what was provided to the city and the assessment firm. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bedford?
Just based on what we had presented to the board.
All right, thank you. We'll go on to our ultimate property on 1105 Arlington.
I can make this quick, Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking for confirmation on this one.
Okay. This is stock exchange?
Yep.
Not being aware of any other hotel in Arlington.
Yeah. We used to call it LA when I was going to LA with Logan Farmington.
Okay, so can you lead us through the,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
That means you accept? Is that what-
well,
He still has
He's
to-
asking
that
for
means he's not
confirmation,
presenting the.
but I'll quickly go through what it's based
Yeah.
Oh,
on.
okay, all right, thanks.
So roll number is 13082631200, 1105 Arlington, 2020 assessment at $2,966,000. This is a 16 guest room hotel with 15 VLTs and a license capacity of 335. Page 3 of my evidence shows my income approach. We've used all actuals once again. Generating an NOI of $395,480, capitalized at 12% with a 10% FF&E deduction gives us our rounded value of $2,966,000. Thank you.
Okay, all right, any questions from the panel? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes today's hearing. Thank you for your presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and panel members.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.